What's going on, guys? Welcome into today's episode. We've got a great guest, Stephen Petasky. This man is on a mission to revolutionize the short-term rental experience, bringing guests luxury within reach. And when you have given over the course of 20 years, he's an OG. He got into short-term rentals and the luxury rental space way before Airbnb was ever a thing. I think it was like right after the inception of VRBO. And after delivering 20,000 amazing vacations, the dude knows a little bit about hospitality. Now the CEO and founder of the Luxus Group for the last 17 years. He is doing some unbelievable things in the hospitality space. And you guys know me, passionate about hospitality, experiences, creating memories and just giving people a feeling, right, that is special. And we geeked out on that conversation today. Whether you're looking to do this in your real estate investments, with your customers, even with friends, family members, so many great little nuggets that Stephen dropped in today's episode. And this was a journey that started when he left his grocery business, him and his wife going all in and starting with one property to now scaling it in a partnership with the Four Seasons, doing a $600 million high-rise luxury development with a brand of that caliber, resort and, properties all over the country, all over the world now. Some amazing things that I think you guys are going to gain from our conversation today due to smart, humble, and just drop some really wise nuggets that I think you're going to get some great value from. So let's dive into today's episode with Stephen Petasky. Welcome into the show, Stephen. How we doing, brother?
I'm very good. How you doing, Matt?
Dude, I'm always fired up when I get to talk to somebody that's as obsessed with hospitality and real estate investing as I am. And I don't know, you might beat me here. I'm not sure yet. I know your project size and scopes are definitely getting up there. You got what are we talking? A $600 million high-rise development in Henderson, Nevada. You've got Four Seasons partnerships. You got resorts in Playa del Carmen. So I want to dig into all of that. Let's save that for later. But
sure.
Let's rewind, Father Time and take it back to the beginning a little bit and talk about how you got into your entrepreneurial journey and fell into this path that we have found you on now.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. Thanks for having me on your show, by the way. Excited to converse. And we'll be, I would say neighbors, but pretty soon as we're going to be in Southern California. But good to meet another Californian as we're making our move from Edmonton, Canada down south. It's pretty exciting as we're growing the business in the United States, which is lots of fun. So, but going way back, the business was primarily growing actually out of Canada, Edmonton, Canada based. But it all started with my wife and our own problem we were trying to solve for ourselves. I think some of the best ways for an entrepreneur to get into business is trying to solve a problem for yourself, because if
Absolutely.
you have that problem, probably many others do as well, right? So take you way back, 2006, pregnant with, wife is pregnant with our boy. And a lot of friends are saying, hey, get ready. You're not going to travel anymore. Travel sucks with babies. It's hard on airplanes. You get to the property, it sucks. And it was just kind of a little bit almost depressing at the time, in the sense that we love travel. That was kind of what the courtship was all about, is getting around the world and doing cool things together. And so we just kind of refused to take that as like our new life. And so we thought, well, how do we get the kids traveling in a way that's convenient for us so we actually enjoy ourselves? If you're not going to enjoy yourself, it's kind of a deterrent, obviously, from wanting to spend money and do something that no one's going to have fun with. The babies are blissfully unaware. So at that age, it's more about just the parents still having a good time and connecting.
Yep.
So at the time, we kind of looked at three options. We were in totally different careers. Wife was a journalist. I was in the retail grocery business. And we were, had a little bit of money saved, but not a lot to make any big investments. But we said, okay, there's three things we can do. We can stick with hotels, which is obviously plentiful variety and unlimited options, but it's really tricky, as I've kind of shared on previous shows. It's just a baby in a hotel room. It just kind of takes the romance out of everything. You're trying to reconnect with your spouse, and babies in the hotel room is just kind of hard. And then also eating out 3 meals a day wasn't really ever our thing. So it wasn't really a fit. So we really liked the idea of having size and a kitchen and multiple bedrooms. So rentals was obviously going to be the next play. But at that time, this is like, pre-Airbnb days. You've got, Vrbo, really, really inconsistent. There's been improvements on those platforms. We'll talk about that later with our new business. But it's just still, you don't know what you're going to get. You just don't have that certainty. And I think as new parents in particular, we just weren't willing to roll the dice on the hope that it has the things that are needed, to make our lives normal and we can really enjoy a great vacation.
Yeah.
So then the third bucket was buying our own home, which is great because you get exactly what you want. You get to have equity, so you get some capital appreciation, maybe some rental if you chose to rent it out. But then it lacked the variety. You have one spot. We wanted to see different places of the world. So as we kind of went through this all, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a portfolio of homes that we directly own that we can set up exactly how we want. And then you kind of check all the boxes. You get the variety, you get the certainty, and you get the size requirements. And I said, okay, well, we have no money. So how do we do such a thing? And we came up with just a syndicated concept, not uncommon that many people do all the time. It'd be like you, me, and a couple other buddies throw in a couple $100,000 each and buying a $1 million home. But we thought, what if we do that on scale and do that over multiple homes and create a bit of a portfolio? So we created a fund, just a limited partnership structure, pretty standard. We were the general partner and managing partner of that, and we went out, and my parents and us threw in the first kind of couple $100K each, and we had 16 friends and family. So blessed that they decided to jump on the journey because we had no office, no team. We said we're going to have this concierge team and asset management and booking platform and all these pieces, and we're like, we don't have it yet, but we will. And they jumped on, and we raised $3.5 million, and we bought 3 homes. We got one in Scottsdale, a nice single family home. We got a condo in Maui, and then a home on Western Canada, on like a ski summer destination. So we really checked that variety to get that, that beach, that golf, and that ski summer.
Yeah.
And what we didn't expect, this wasn't a real business at the time. We hired our first couple employees. And
when was this? Rolling. What year was this?
07 now.
Okay.
Yeah. So just
definitely
anniversary.
Airbnb, STR hype, everybody getting, okay.
Correct. It was before all the regulations and compliance and all things that we had to suffer through and figure out in our particular journey.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, private equity golf club meets real estate private club, travel club. That was kind of the concept. And we actually used a golf club structure to kind of create our rules and regulations and our financial structure and everything else. And so we had these first 3. We bought all of cash. We rarely had any sort of debt, no long-term mortgages or anything.
Yeah.
But those 16 people told 16 friends and told 16 friends. We jumped to 10 homes and about 60 people relatively quickly. And then we realized we had a kind of a real business. And so at that point, I exited the other business and went full-time into this. And we really kind of got lucky. I think the strategy was correct, but no one knew the Great Recession was going to come around, obviously. So we were in a kind of a neat place in Western Canada where the economy was still fairly strong, but the world real estate was on sale after the Great Recession. And we ended up raising a lot of money. We ended up about $100 million in value. This is Canadian dollars. When the dollar was on parity with the US dollar, it's a whole different scenario now, but for the sake of easy math, 100 million, 50 properties, 3 separate funds, over 400 investors. And it was a closed-end system. It's only people that could use the homes were the actual investors. So it was, again, think private club meets vacation club.
Yep.
And it was a great run. And it was awesome. We feel super blessed we got to where we were. We, at the end of the day, facilitated about 20,000 vacations for those partners. So we became really good at operating remote assets, became good at concierge, providing this great service experience. But we realized there's a limit. There's a limit from a securities legislation perspective on, raising capital at that scale. There's a limit on ownership. We also had these horizon events where you had liquidity events to exit capital out. And so we just realized that we weren't making a good impact with the people we were serving, but not the impact that we were trying to accomplish, which was a lot more people around the world getting a chance to experience what we've had the blessing to experience, which is certainty when you travel, which was not possible by any other means effectively in the vacation rental space. And in the midst of all that, we got in this development game. We thought, okay, this would be, why don't we build some short-term rental friendly communities specifically for hospitality, designed for hospitality, because that's at that point in 2014, 15, Airbnb was cooking. And all these cities and states were trying to figure out how to govern this disruption that happened in the shared home and obviously like Uber and the shared, ride service industry.
Yeah.
And so regulations coming down the pipe, we thought we should build a moat around our communities and create this protected space where we could operate our short-term club and other short-term rental type companies. So we launched a project in Hawaii, a project in Southern California and Palm Springs, and then a kind of a fractional project in Tuscany, Italy. which is a hybrid of rental and kind of fractional ownership. And we got varying degrees of success. We had one that did pretty good, and one that was okay, and one good punch in the throat. And as you kind of learn along the way in the ground up development space, so certainly some challenging times along the way that we kind of learned our way through. A lot of stuff that learned a lot about blind spots, from volcanoes erupting and global pandemics and things that you just can't quite pencil in for in your business thesis, and realize they can happen. It's changed how we obviously underwrite deals now, as we spend full days thinking of every blind spot that could happen. Aliens landing at our project in Vegas and taking over. Like, well, what would we do in such a scenario? But we'll come back to the development side. And then just to wrap up the whole story, the whole timeline, 2020 COVID hits. Really put a strain on our business kind of globally. We had some good momentum, but we also had it was a neat timeline in hindsight. It really sucked at the moment, but in hindsight's 2020, maybe it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. They gave us a chance to pause for a year, regroup on our business strategy and where we wanted to focus our energies. And then we kicked off with developments, Luxus development side. My partner runs that side of the business based in New York. And we've been, as you mentioned, we ended up getting this wonderful partnership with Four Seasons on a project in Las Vegas. And we're working on, future projects with brands. Can't get into the details entirely, but some fun stuff in Tuscany, Italy, and some other destinations. So that just kind of got, as we talked about in the pre-call, like, it's hard to think because you're at this point of like, can we actually do it? But you keep staying the course consistently over and over. And then there is this lightning in a bottle moment. And we always believed we knew we had great products. We knew we had a good vision for products. We just tried to figure out where we were best served in the food chain of the process of developing these, and realize that we're better visionaries and creating projects than maybe building them. So we now bring on partners that are experts in building and handovers and things. So we've learned a lot on the journey. And then finally, to wrap up the last year, we wound up the entire vacation club side, and we're launching effectively a branded vacation rental experience. There'll be a global portfolio of homes, probably 500 homes. And the concept there is taking what we learn in hospitality, this hotel style experience and certainty, and applying to vacation homes, so that travelers, when they travel through us, they know what they're going to get on the other side. They know what the bed's like, they know what the kitchen's like, they know what the bathrooms are like. And we'll talk about that later in the show, but it's something we're pretty proud of, very excited about. Be a busy 5 years ahead for us, but I'm pretty excited about that. So that's the whole timeline, years and 10 minutes.
So many cool, I think inflection points, right? That you never can imagine how big things can get until you get a few wins along the way. But I always find it's the wins that aren't necessarily the greatest teachers. It's always, either the grit or the perseverance, or obviously real tactical learning feedback when you kind of fall down and you scrape your knee in those first few years. Because I feel like that's always the hardest hump to get over as a new real estate investor, right? There's this season of romance, and I'm going to be rich and flying around in a private jet, and I decided I'm going to be a real estate investor, so I'm going to crush it, right? And then you get in there, and there's sleepless nights, and there's stress, and there's project management challenges, and finding deals, and financial engineering, and all of these things, right? Looking back on your journey, what were some of those big aha moments for you early on that you really feel like, by spotlighting for other people early in their journey, it'll give them a little bit more of a proper expectation around how to set the right foundational mindset to make sure you can push through those and really get to the other side of where the good stuff starts to happen?
Yeah, no, great question. Thanks for asking. I'd say that, like anything, it's said frequently, but you can never say it enough. Everything takes longer, is harder, and costs more than you think. It's just kind of the nature, especially if you're in a very entrepreneurial business, which our things have been very entrepreneurially focused. And not to say that buying a fourplex isn't entrepreneurial, it certainly is, but we're trying to create a whole new business and a whole new industry. So we had to build everything from scratch, everything from the technology to the systems to the processes. So when we thought, oh, this is going to be great, we're going to be at 100 homes in 5 years, and just like you said, flying on in private jets, and you realize that macroeconomic factors affect you. You have things you have to learn along the way, hiccups on service delivery, and you're just in a constant state of learning. And like you said, middle of the night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how you can solve that problem. And it's really entrepreneurship is just solving problems that other people don't want to solve themselves, and then you can charge for it. So I'd say through that early part of the journey, which was fortunate for us, but I think is a good lesson maybe for others, we did have other careers that had income. We didn't rely on any money in the first 5 years of the business, which we just worked a lot. Like obviously two new children, our only two children, but two brand new babies, existing careers, and then running a new business. And thinking everything to full-time attention. So there wasn't a ton of sleep. It's a tremendous amount of work, but we had income to put on the table. So I didn't have this need to to take money out of the business. So we're able just to plow that back in for growth. And that was super helpful. Not everyone has that, but everyone can have side hustles and ways to create income. We live below our means for that extended period of time to ensure we can get the business on 2 feet. And I do think a lot of people, Instagram, whatever, it's all about the show and everything. And we could care less about the show. It was about like building a company that could sustain the long term. And then as you grow, you crack through that ceiling, and then you hit a new threshold, which then we find new troubles in, the mid, 2015, 2016, 2017 time. And then you crack through that and you keep working your way through it. I just find every ceiling you try to crack through, it's no different than the first one. It's hard. It takes longer, it costs more. And, but if you stay the course and you have a product that the world needs, stay at it. That's probably the biggest piece of advice you give anyone. If the world doesn't need it, then maybe you should find a different product. But if the world needs it, you just work harder than the next guy and you'll find something special on the other side.
It's funny. I always tell people, real estate's stressful for sure. Real estate in general, it's stressful when you're taking risks, when you're putting yourself out there. It's stressful. So you have to build up that. You have to build up that callus to the fact that it's just going to be stressful, and that's just part of the process. But to be totally honest, I didn't really know what true real estate stress was until I got into hospitality and hotels, and just hospitality in general. Right? It's oftentimes a living, breathing organism that has a heartbeat and a pulse 24/7, whether that's your staff in those properties or that's guests in those properties. It's a living, breathing, organism that there's always something coming up. And so it's funny, we used to joke around with our team, and I think it's just if you can set the proper expectation and precedent around stress and somewhat desensitize yourself to it. And going back to your point of we just look at solving problems and solving problems and solving problems, because there's always a problem that's coming up that you got to fix in your business or with a particular asset or a customer or whatever it may be. It was funny, once we got into hotels, I remember talking with my team, and a lot of them would have their hair on fire sometimes. And it's we know every day there's going to be a problem in real estate investing. So if you just have that as your normal filter and just say, hey, all right, cool, this is the problem, we got to focus on solving it, and let's just focus on that and get back to a solutions-based mindset. It's unbelievable what you can accomplish and the breakthroughs you can have, and also how much more fun it can become. I'm curious on your mindset and approach at the scale that you guys have, and how you look at solving problems tactically in your business with your team, and how do you really, manage that for yourself in addition to, helping others around you to provide such a great outcome and experience that you guys do so well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I agree on the hospitality side. I sometimes wish I should have just bought industrial parks. You get rent every month, nothing you have to worry about. It's pretty easy. But in hospitality, you nailed it. It's a 24/7 business. And while we weren't, we have a hotel now, but the time we were effectively running a hospitality business, thousands of vacations a year. And as there's a full-on, 1,000 plus vacations a year, it's a full-on hotel meets vacation rental. So the challenges never stop. So you have to build a team around you that's around it. And I think that the catalyst you can set the mindset, and I'll tell you a bit about mindset, how we work through things, and me personally, but you just have to go through it to develop the callus, just like you can't put calluses on your hands unless you're, carrying heavy stuff every single day and throwing boulders. And so, but if you go into it knowing it's not going to be easy, and when the problems do come consistently every day, when times are bad or times are good, it's consistent problems. We kind of have this 3-foot mindset. So I did just fun kind of little sidebar experience in 2015. Did this Navy SEAL training experience in Southern California with active Navy SEALs, and basically paid to get put through a Hell Week experience, simulated Hell Week, and it was 4 days of very kicking sand in your face in the ocean and all night long things. It was quite crazy. the SEALs were so amazing because you got all this time with them over the 4 days, and you get a chance to have conversations. Like, how do you do it? And they said, when you do Hell Week the real way, 5 to 7 days and everything else, and Bud's trainings, 3-4 months.
Yep.
Is you get to a point where you're just thinking 3 feet in front of you. You can't think about day 5 or day 7 or month 2 or whatever. You're thinking 3 feet in front of you. And it's kind of transformed. I think at that time, I wasn't calloused yet. I think most things have gone pretty good in our world, but we had some challenges happening. You can see some things percolating in the economy, in our economy anyway, in Canada. And we said, you know what? Let's look at this as just what's in front of us. So as a visionary, you have to be on the business, but if you're also a visionary that's building a business, you're in the business as well. So you have to kind of like decide when you're sitting in what seat. And from a team perspective, I think I was getting so caught up, or from my personal perspective, getting caught up in like what all the things that could happen. And then it almost becomes paralyzing because it's really hard to make decisions when you're like, well, God, if this happens, what happens in a year? Do we lose investors' capital? Do we have to sell this home? Do we have to do these things? When you're like, okay, what's the problem today? What's 3 feet in front of you?
Yeah.
And then I think in particular, when you're under duress, which every entrepreneur will absolutely go through many times in their career if they stay an entrepreneur, is you just go back to that mentality. And it's really helped me now to say, okay, I feel like things are crumbling. The team's all stressed. You're going to come in and have this positive, smiley attitude, but it's like, okay, what are the problems we can solve today? And let's not worry about the future. And then everyone gets in that mindset of that, and who are thinking on the shorter term versus longer term. And as you solve those things, I know we're beating this horse with the solving problems, but all of a sudden the outlook and future becomes clear. It's like, oh, we actually, the 2,900 possibilities I thought could happen in a year, now there's like 4 possibilities. Now it's how do we limit down to 1 or 2 possibilities? And I just think that helps with the mental anguish that comes with being an entrepreneur along the way. It doesn't perfect it by any means, but it definitely helped me compartmentalize a little bit that aspect of the business, especially when you're under some pain, and to allow you to work through it. And when times are good, it's the same thing. If you're scaling really fast and rocking, as some of our businesses are, we have now growth problems on the other side. How do you grow? We don't have enough people. They're working too hard. And so you have to solve problems in a positive way. It's a more fun way to solve problems than when things are challenging. But it's the same mindset. What do we have to solve that's 3 feet in front of us? And we just chip away towards a master plan and towards a goal that's very clear that everyone can understand and see. But you bring everyone back to the day. So that's been helpful for me.
I want to shift a little bit over to the STR space, being that you've seen it evolve, from pre-Airbnb, which really obviously, took the STR space through a metamorphosis to where it's at today. There's been this renaissance of like boutique hospitality and, eclectic and unique and individual and exclusive experiences. What are some of the things that you're excited about in the STR space? And what are some of the things that you guys are paying attention to that you think are still potentially threats or challenges that, people should be keeping on their radar?
Yeah, sure. I think that from the STR perspective, it was interesting when you see what Airbnb obviously created, and people always rented vacation homes forever. So Airbnb created technology that accelerated that growth rapidly, obviously through, 2000, I think they're founded in 8, but kind of got their legs at 2010, 11.
Yeah.
And then obviously the last 14, 15 years, they've been on fire to the point that, governments have now had to determine how to regulate short-term rentals. And you've got cities like New York that are effectively fully shut down from short-term rentals, to some cities that are more favorable to it, and communities are more favors and others that aren't. So I've been through the entire almost 20-year spectrum of it, from like it was a free-for-all Wild West, anyone can rent their home anywhere, no matter what, to now it's super hyper restricted, and you have to be really hyper focused, I guess, on where you want to ultimately have STRs. So I think from a macro level, you're going to see pain. Like, I'd say pain, maybe some stress in the industry. Well, not maybe, it is happening today. We are definitely entering a trough. You also had this COVID artificial bump to the short-term rental space for 2 years that really artificially inflated the demand. So a lot of people entered the space during a time when it's at its peak.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy stock at its peak, it's sell it at its low, but that's what happened. A lot of these companies are valued at billions of dollars. Now they're being, Vacasa is a good example. Just a week or two ago, I think its peak valuation was 1 to 2 billion, maybe a bit more, and they just sold for 114 million to Casago, I think it says. So this is an example of some of these larger companies that have raised a lot of private equity to grow and really grew hard through this one cycle that was a little artificially inflated. And then you see it from a macro level, Airbnb's down and Vacasa's down. The reality is there's too much supply.
Yep.
Because these companies made it really You put supply on, too many do-it-themselfers. Everyone got hot on the short-term rental space, and there's going to be a decline at a macro level. We think the opportunity lives, you nailed it, in this boutique niche space within it. And there's lots of ways to tackle the short-term rental world. You could be the perfect person for, I don't know, pick a city, it's Lake Country, Idaho or something, where you have your own perfect portfolio of really cool homes, and you're the guy there. And once you start to do really well, super host status and algorithms work to your favor, you can get a disproportionate return. If you're just a one-off do-it-yourselfer, it's going to be really hard to get the returns you probably expected and maybe thought you could get when things were rocking 2 or 3 years ago. The niche we're trying to carve out is, as I mentioned, this branded vacation experience. So taking like the hotel thought pattern. Hotels don't own their real estate. They hotel like Marriott and Four Seasons and others. They just provide the horsepower and sophistication that developers don't have. So you build a hotel like we're doing at our Marriott in Mexico. Marriott comes in, they're the horsepower for it, they drive it, you have an asset manager, and you're just, ideally, if things go well, you just collect checks as the property owner.
Yep.
Allows them to scale, but the big thing they do is they provide brand and certainty. So if we could do that in the vacation rental space, which is our goal, where you or your family could travel to San Diego or Cabo or Hawaii or Bahamas or Italy, and you're going to get the same sleep and the same kitchen setup, and the TV is going to work, pretty much the same. You're like, that's easier. I just don't have to stress about what's on the other side. And then I think that can compete with hotels. There's just not, it's such a fraction of the industry. I'm going to make this up, 0.001% of those that are trying to do it this way. So it will never compete holistically with the hotel industry, which is massive, obviously. But hotels for certain want this type of experience. They would love to have their own curated portfolio of homes with a Marriott. For example, they have Marriott Homes and Villas, just to talk about it, which has thousands of homes. But the problem a Marriott Bonvoy member goes to, they think they're getting Marriott linens and they're getting the Marriott coffee machine, everything else. It's not. It's still just Joe Smith's home that's set up maybe a little better than VRBO or whatever.
Right.
So what Marriott love to have is thousands of homes with Marriott linens and Marriott coffee makers and everything else. So we're trying to see if we can crack that code. And with 18 years of experience of service delivery and asset management, we think we're very well positioned to do a good job with it. And we got a lot of work ahead of us next 5 years, but I'm all in fully committed that I think if we can base it on the foundation of certainty, people want to know what they get on the other side. And happiness is a function of expectations met. And if we can meet expectations, I think people will be repeat guests and stay with Luxus, both as a homeowner and as a traveler to our properties. So that gets me fired up because I'm 44. I think this 5 to 8 year journey is going to take me in my 50s, and I'm going to be going hard the next time to deliver this experience. And if we can do a good job by it, I think we're going to have a good outcome on the other side.
Amazing, man. I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, I think, especially with younger generations now, millennials' biggest purchasing power, age demographic in the world. Obviously, the Instagram and TikTok, real world that has really gotten, hospitality and experiences and those things popularized to the level that they are now. It's almost expected, right? Like they don't want to stay in the boring beige, standard brand rooms that these, flagged hotels have done a good job at for so long. But it's almost like there's a new renaissance happening in the hospitality world. Expectations are evolving, experiences and the desires around those are changing. And so I know you've seen so many different ends of that spectrum, right? From the branded and the flagged and, here's what you get versus some of the one-offs that do it really well, but they don't really have a brand, staple behind them. And so for those that are looking to play in this hospitality world, are looking to stand out, are looking to create world-class experiences and provide that hospitality to people in ways that, are aligned with your vision. What are some of the do's and don'ts that you're seeing work well or really, hurt and work against people in that space?
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with that. I like where you're going with the boutique hotel space, what you've done and what you're doing, because I do that. There is absolutely a desire for that. The flags will always have their business. There's no question. And obviously we're working with Four Seasons. They're, best hospitality company in the world. They're an amazing company. It's an amazing group of people, high desire for amazing service delivery. So I believe in that. I also believe in these boutique experiences. So if you're an entrepreneur looking to get into hospitality, and you have limited capital, or these boutique, smaller, less than 50 key hotels, I think are really good opportunities. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, so I won't commit to the underwriting and the returns because it's so many variables, of course.
Right.
But I think that the traveler, that next generation of traveler, they can't afford, $1,000 or $2,000 in the Four Seasons. That's the kind of the top 0.05% income earners. For everyone else, I think people are looking for some differentiated experience versus a Courtyard by Marriott in San Diego versus a super cool surf hotel, in San Diego that's privately branded and everything else. So I absolutely agree with you. And I think that that's a great way to get in if you want to be in hospitality. And I think you've caveated, but it's a hard business because the operations is a 24/7. But if you are a hospitality professional that comes from the restaurant world or that service-based industry, and that's not foreign to you, I think it's a great way because the barriers to entry are so high, and it filters out the people that don't want to work on weekends and Sundays. And there's a leak in the fridge at the hotel on Sunday afternoon at the restaurant before dinner service. You got to be prepared to be part of that solution. And not everyone wants to, but for those that are in that business, I think that's a great angle. And I think there's going to be a lot of growth in that space over the coming years.
So talk about how you got into, how do you attract and partner with the Four Seasons, right? I mean, I think of Ritz and I think of Four Seasons as, kind of the gold standard of premier hospitality. What was it that helped you narrow in your scope and focus of going, I want to go down this path and start to align with these types of brands? And how the heck did you do it?
Well, it's where it started where it is now, two different things. But when we started down the road in early 2021, after COVID, or kind of during COVID, we had this great partnership with a dear friend of mine that was in Las Vegas, and he had a great friend that had a connection to this landowner. And all these things stars kind of aligned for us to play a pretty meaningful role over the next couple of years on helping to create a vision for this land that would align with the landowner and align with what the city needs. And because there's a lot of varying aspects around it. So we kind of found our sweet spot that we're good at is helping through the entitlement phase. So taking something that is, I'm going to say farmland and converting to something more significant. In this case, it was residential to, tower residential. So it's a complicated entitlement process. Helping to build the team, the engineers, architects, vision boards, everything that can help work its way through the entitlement phase. So we never anticipated, and before Four Seasons came on board, we were just privately branded. So it was called Pinnacle Residences. And that was something that we think could have been very successful and probably still could have been. But with economic resets and stuff, you just never know. There's more risk in private branded at that scale than there is with. And once we got fully entitled, the Four Seasons approached us, as did other brands. And when we talked to the various brands, we really wanted to align with the premier brand with Four Seasons. And they have what's called a standalone residential product now. So versus most Four Seasons and a lot of these hotels will have a residential component and a hotel attached.
Yep.
They're doing what's called standalone. And I think it's a genius idea because Four Seasons super fans that want to live in a community but not have the hotel guest at the pool, that's staying there for $1,000 a night when you do own a $8 million property. It's all people that live there. So I think it's a genius idea, and we just happen to get in the early stage. So when they approached us, and then it's a long process. They want to make sure you're a good human being, that you have a good company, that you have a good team, you're doing the right thing. So they do a lot of underwriting on you personally to make sure you become a good partner. And then they're also underwriting the project financially. Will this be the best piece of land that could ever exist in this market? Because they're not in the business of taking second and third pickings, and they want to make sure they're in the best and prime spot. So they do a lot of work, and it took better part of 8-9 months to kind of button it all up. And through that process, we learned a lot from them. They've just been incredible. And so future now project is a little different as we're looking at other projects with various brands, but let's say Four Seasons. Now that we're a bit more of a, I'll say proven commodity, but known to them, they will participate potentially earlier in the process versus waiting all the way to a certain milestone is hit. So that would be our ultimate goal with various brands is as we grow our company and we execute and do a good job is that you can, envision a piece of land that can be something special.
Yeah.
Brands will compete with each other for that particular product with varying, tools that they have on their disposal and decide that they want to be the best person to be the flag for that project. And so that's one way to do it, so that's, and then, it's pretty much the primary way. You get a piece of land, you take it to the brands, they compete, they get it. Now we have a partner brand with Four Seasons. We're also with Marriott. Is we kind of have some go-tos now, but when you start to get familiar with the brand and how they operate as well, it becomes a really positive symbiotic relationship. So whether it's Courtyard by Marriott, Marriott Autograph Collection, Hyatt, I mean, every brand has their hard brands and their soft brands. And just for clarification, hard brand is a very specific standard that can't be deviated, like JW Marriott. Or you have Marriott Autograph Collection. You can put in your own flair into it, and then you have more flexibility on like FF&E and various aspects. So if I were to sum that up, that long-winded answer is get a great property and brands will come to you. That may be the simplest form. If you have an average property, you're getting an average brand or no brand. If you have a great piece of property, then do. So we're just now fortunate that good pieces of land and opportunities come our way, and we filter through them to try to find the best opportunities, the ones that we can serve them well and do a good job by, and then we pick those, and then we spend 2 or 3 years going through the process.
Amazing. Now, to a couple clarifying questions on that. That, let's just say the Four Seasons project. So you guys are operating as the developer, taking it through entitlement, showing what the piece of dirt can turn into. They felt alignment with the location, density. Is it going to be for sale properties, or are these just rented like apartments?
No, good question. It's all for sale. So the standalone residential side is actually where you sell them off.
Okay.
And they actually, instead of Four Seasons, you think typical or any brand that they're running a hotel, they're now the head of the HOA. So they, just like any community, they run the HOA effectively in perpetuity. And so that they just, typical homeowner association can vote out the manager of an HOA anytime, and they bring in someone new. But when you buy into this, you're buying into a Four Seasons, the run and governed HOA for effectively your life and for as long as you own the property. And our role is, identify the land, build it out and sell it. And then we ultimately move on. And the goal, of course, is that you sell it for more than you built it for, which is any developer's goal. And the Four Seasons ultimately takes over operations. In certain scenarios, like we're looking at Europe, you do maintain a presence and maybe a rental program, or you manage some of the amenities. But in the particular case of this asset, it will be like a full exit. And once we transfer all the real estate, 171 units, over to homeowners, our role will be done. And then Four Seasons will operate that going forward for forever, probably.
That's awesome. I mean, what a cool model. I love seeing some of these big, you're seeing Ferrari has a brand house now. You've got distilleries are creating brand house hotels. I mean, you've got all of these people that are going, I've got a great brand. Let me give my customers a place and a space to experience our brand in maybe a different way than they're used to. It becomes a different vertical, a different brand enhancer. So many cool elements to the lifestyle and experiential, vein that we're talking about here, really continuing to be front and center of these things, right? It's like, hey, you're not living in a hotel, you're living in a Four Seasons, managed community that you obviously own. The brand is most likely going to insulate a lot of the value and demand for that, type of asset, because common areas, experiences are all going to be up to those brand standards. So I love seeing the evolution of, different models. And I guess to me, it's what it keeps coming back to is you said the word happiness. I always question is, how is the decision we make going to make our customer feel? Which at the end of the day, the root of what creates that loyalty, that stickiness is like, you made them feel great. You made them feel happy. You created a memory or an experience that now is a core, core thing that sticks with them for the rest of their life. And so there's so much continuity when you think about how to weave hospitality into almost everything you do. I'm curious on your perspective of like, whether you're a developer, it's a short-term rental, it's a hotel, like what's your approach in terms of how you're really thinking about that from a psychology perspective?
I just want to say one thing first. You mentioned, I think, like Four Seasons is a great example, and obviously I'm a super fan and enjoyer of their product. But I like, they're a big company. For a big company to pivot from purely hotels to the hotel residential combo, now they've got yachts. Now they've got private estates, which for the ultra rich that don't want to share a hotel with someone else, they just have a private retreat and they have that, and then they have this residential. So now they've got multiple ways for a Four Seasons fan to experience their product versus just the way that was for maybe the first 20 years, 30 years. So I think it is really cool to see how big companies evolve. And, in case of Four Seasons privately held, how they're like, we our clients want to see more offerings, and what type of offerings would they want? And they spend a lot of time doing it, figuring out and doing it right. And they found out that people want to live there, full time and be a resident of it. So that, I think that's really, was kind of a special thing to see. And hopefully we're a beneficiary of that trajectory that they're on with playing a role and helping with their, this project in future. Because I think it's going to be they just open up a massive growth opportunity for their company. You can't put a hotel in every city in America for Four Seasons, but you now have, like Vegas, they have a hotel, but they don't have residential. So they just, I'm not going to say doubled their income necessarily, but they just added a whole new play in a city that already had an established hotel. Yeah. So to that point, in terms of like seeing, these companies, vary. I think you also nailed. I just want to validate it. Is how you make them feel. My wife always said that. She was a journalist. It's not what they learn or anything else. It's how you make them feel when you're talking to them. So everything in my business that we've created has a lifestyle touch point. It's probably why I joke about the industrial aspect. I'm sure there's a way to feel that as well and feel different things. But for my passion was about helping people, like whether they're an investor with us, they're a client of ours, homeowner, whatever it may be. There's some lifestyle component attached to it that makes them feel something that makes them want to come back. And it hasn't been a perfect journey like any entrepreneur, but I think that we've done, if a high level 18-year approach, have done a good job, that people say, wow, I actually, even in tough times, I still had a chance to participate in this restoration of a Italian farmhouse become a luxury estate. Whether it's a good investment or not, maybe, not, is only part of the relevance. The other part is, I can say to my friends, I invested in this, and this was a very cool journey for 6 years. So everything we've done, we have this filter. Is it fun? And does it make people feel something? Will they come back to it? And obviously, some people are looking for pure financial returns, and that's perfectly fine as well. But when we recruit investors or filter them, we're also looking very much for people that are fans of the product, of the end game, not just purely financial. Because if they are, they're going to have a better journey, because development's hard. Like, there's so many ups and downs. It's a crazy roller coaster, as you know. And if they can ride the wave with you, the ups and downs, then you're gonna have a good product at the end of the day. So I love how you frame that in terms of feeling something. I think that can be applied to any business, frankly. Just our business has been around vacation experiences.
Yeah, same thing. One of my early mentors, he goes, if you can find a career, a path, a vehicle that is energized, he calls it ELF, energizing, lucrative, and fun, like, you hit the jackpot. And that was one of the things, why I fell in love with hospitality is it's energizing. There's definitely, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is energizing. It can be lucrative when you do it well. Obviously, to your point, operations, you can have a great vision, but if you can't actualize or bring that, to life and reality, it's going to be a rough go. But when you do it like that, it can be lucrative and fun. And
energizing, lucrative, and fun. I love that yellow. I'm going to use that, but I'll make sure I tag you every time.
Use away. But it was, to me, that was one of the reasons why I fell in love with hospitality. And, I love commercial real estate, but, when I drive by my shopping centers, my daughters aren't stoked to go, run through the liquor store and go check out the dog wash. Like, they're going, when can we go back up to the hotels in Tahoe and, go to the beach and, eat at the restaurant? Like, those are the things that I love about hospitality. And I don't think hospitality just has to equal hotels or short-term rentals, right? It's that customer journey experience, like you said, whether it's for your investors, what's the feeling you're giving them when they're going through that journey with you? It's your customers, it's working through a deal with the seller or brand or whatever it is. So I just love that you brought that up. And I think it's important, being that people want to do business with people that make them feel a certain type of way. P&Ls and ROIs and IRRs and, cash on cash, all of that is great. But if you can go above and beyond that and create a feeling, an emotional, and an anchor for somebody, that just is such a way to become an outlier in a sea of everybody that's doing the same shit.
I agree. And I just want to jump on one thing as a super important, and particularly for entrepreneurs, is if you pick something you're passionate about, something you're not passionate about, you're just trying to learn, well, get passionate about it. And again, it could be buying a fourplex or doing a hotel or building a Four Seasons, whatever it is. You have to deeply love it, because the authenticity will show through that if you're not really in love with it, it's kind of not thrilling for the end user to be a part of the journey with you. Yeah. And I think of, the brain is obviously the world's most powerful supercomputer. And if it's things that you love, it never really shuts off. It's solving problems while you're sleeping, before you go to bed, when you wake up. If you're like, I got to dive into this like underwriting of this thing at 8:30 in the morning, and at 4:30 your brain shuts off from it. Well, someone is probably passionate about it and probably putting in 20 hours a day of problem solving, whether it's unconscious or consciously. When you're putting in 8 hours, it's going to be hard to compete.
Yeah.
So whether you want to be a garbage truck disposal or a haircutter or fourplex superstar or a hospitality thing, and a lot of people say, well, you can love making money. And I don't disagree with that. Loving making money could be the passion that people see behind. I love making money. That's why this industrial park is going to be so successful. I'm going to make so much money for you. And the client feels like great and the investors feel great. But if there's a product offering that's where you have passion, you will have a chance to leapfrog so many others in the space that are lazy, that don't really love what they do. And they do it because they probably have a proficiency for it, doing it an extended period of time, but you can compress time, and become, a subject matter expert in a certain space if you actually do really love it. So I'm a big believer of that side. It's worked well for me. And I think that if you pick something that you want to learn because you're really interested in it, put 500 hours into it as quickly as you can. And, whatever the number is, the 500 hours is kind of a good benchmark.
Yep.
You're going to know pretty quick, this is something you're thinking about 24/7, or you kind of have to turn your brain on to think about it.
Yeah.
And if you got to turn your brain on to think about it, you probably want to switch gears. If you only burn 500 hours, that's like a quarter of your working year. Like it's 10 hours a week. It's a lot of time. Then move on to something else. You just learn that's not your thing. And I think people are just afraid to put in the time. And I think people want quick, instant gratification and quick clarity in their career. And I just think that it just takes a lot. It took me 18 years, I think, to figure out what I really wanted to do and what I'm good at. And now I deeply love what we're doing. Like all I think about every day is all my kids talk about. And so now it's I've cut all the stuff that was a distraction for me, and we're hyper focused on these two endeavors. And that'll be the next 5 to 10 years of my life. And I'm stoked about it.
That's amazing, man. Well, I know that there's a lot changing in the hospitality world with experiences, PropTech, AI. What are some of the things that you're paying attention to? And maybe it's stuff that you've learned from Four Seasons and learning from the big boys and girls who've got more manpower, capital resources, or maybe a little bit further down the road on, understanding where some of these trends are headed and how they're implementing it, or some of the things that have worked really well for you guys or that you're expecting to work well. What are some of the other things from that perspective that you're paying attention to that you think are brand enhancers or experience enhancers that others might be able to incorporate into their own properties?
Yeah, I think it's experience first. So what does the end user want? Is there demand for that? So it's really understanding that end experience, and then what are the mechanics to deliver that experience? So I think that's probably more where you're on. It's interesting, like in the hospitality space, because it's still so human driven, is that it's really around the process to deliver an experience that's exceptional at a cost that you can manage, that you can still charge more for, so that you actually have profit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I was in a problem for 5 years at a point we were over delivering in service because I thought we had to. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision, but chewing up any excess capital on that overservice delivery. And I think it was a journey to be on, but I wasn't thinking about the math of, okay, I put $1 out, I can't have only 90 cents in, and because I'm overservice delivering. So I think that my personal experience, my own mistake, or maybe learning curve, was you still have to have a profit at the end of the day. The client doesn't want you to go bankrupt, because if they're loving your experience, you're not doing them a favor when you have to shut the hotel down a year later down the road because you've over delivered. You either got to raise prices to the point that is sustainable and does it, or you have to cut costs. And I'm always prefer of deliver a better experience, people will pay for it.
Yeah.
But that's not for every single thing, obviously. So I definitely follow an AI, and there's a lot of back of house stuff that I think can be resolved. I'm not proficient in it yet, but we've got people on it and trying to talk and figure out how, particularly in the short-term rental space, around algorithms with Airbnb and various things you can use to help get your rankings up. At the end of the day, rankings are going to come from end user and their experience and giving you ratings.
Yep.
But if there are ways that we can simplify back of house to shave costs while not affecting the service experience, we're going to learn a lot about that the next couple of years and try to integrate that into our business. But I still think people want to talk to someone. They don't have robots delivering them pizza. I still think there's always going to be that aspect to it. But there's back of house stuff I think can be resolved through some of the improvements in technology and AI for sure.
Amazing. Now, as we wrap up, got to get a couple gems and insights. You've traveled a lot.
Let's do it.
What have been some of your
Quite a bit,
favorite
yeah.
places to travel to? What's been the best bang for the buck? Like, what are some of your favorite travel hacks and things that you've learned by being a provider of great spaces or enjoying great spaces?
Yeah, I think I think of just a few little hacks. If you don't have a global entry, these are things like everything I think about is like, I want when I leave the house that the experience starts. A lot of people, the experience starts when they get to their destination.
I love
I
that.
feel like the whole travel component becomes such a detractor for people. So, things like global, you're crossing borders. It just simplifies the border, saves you time. There's car delivery services. Sometimes I don't want to like navigate an airport. I'll pay $100 and have the car delivered to the house the next day when I need it or something. So there's like little things along the way that gets to the destination in a way that's a little more simplified. Some things cost money. Some things just take time. Global entry costs, I don't know, what it costs, $50 a year or whatever, but no one wants to spend 2 hours filling the application out. But it saved me, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of hours because I have caught flights that I never should have caught. I've been able to not suck in border crossings from coming in and out of the country. And so a lot of these little things along the way certainly have added up. As far as destinations go, from a vacation experience, I'm still like a super fan of Costa Rica. I haven't gone the last few years, but we went probably 20 times in the decade before. I think it's one of the best vacation spots because you've got safety, you've got luxury resorts, you've got great Airbnbs or rentals. Luxus, we have a number of properties down there as well. Particularly the Northwest, I'm a big fan of, just the access to the easy airport. So I'm a big fan of that from vacation. And obviously, still some of the staples like Tuscany, Hawaii. They're just so good. They've done such a great job of protecting what's there. Not entirely, but pretty darn good job. And you just know what you're going to get. Sometimes I just don't want to experiment. I just want something that's stable. And now that we're familiar with the areas and we've people on the ground, obviously our experiences are very consistent and we know what we're going to get. And I travel a lot for business, obviously, and we try to do a lot for our family. And if I can just simplify the experience in any way, shape, or form that makes my journey more fun, then let's do it. And there's a bunch of little things along the way you can do that improves that for sure.
So cool. Well, I would say your journey's been pretty awesome, from the grocery business to developing hotels and building residences in partnership with, Four Seasons. What do you expect I talk to you in 20 years from now? What else is on your radar that are big, hairy audacious goals that you're going after?
Good question. The short-term rental space is interesting. And for us, we're looking at like a 5 to 7 year game plan, and whether we exit or whatever. But I kind of look at these cycles in 7 years at a time.
Yeah.
It just seems to me, our 20 years in business, we've kind of been through these 5 to 7 year cycles. So for me, that's kind of where the direct focus is. I do love the luxury space. And if we could be a provider for luxury brands on finding these unique pieces of land and creating the most fun that I probably will never give up is we're looking at stuff in France and America and Latin America. And it's amazing to be able to look at someone that a family or a legacy that, or it could be also a business that has this piece of land that's very special. But they don't know what to do with it. That's one thing. Even if I'm a consultant or I do it for free, that's one thing I'll always want to continue doing. And so I think that would be in 20 years from now, whether we're still in the business of doing it and developing ourselves, or we are people that help people do it. I always feel like a connector to the vision of a project is something I have a deep, great deal of passion for. And then the final thing for sure, I'll always be planning vacations for my friends, my family. It's where it all started, as I love the idea of helping people have a better experience. And it could be picking the perfect restaurant or golf course or home or whatever it may be. So I get to live that every day, fortunately, with our current business. 20 years from now, I don't know. I hope my kids are in the business. I don't know what that would look like, but they are great little entrepreneurs. I say little, they're teenagers now, but they are very much groomed to be in a place of entrepreneurship. I hope it's with me. They may choose their own path. We'll see when the time comes. But if I can be working with them in 20 years and I'm hopefully doing less work, not 100 hours a week anymore, and they're doing the 100 a week, I'd be pretty happy, I think.
Well, I know first off, dude, congrats, man. I mean, it's just hearing your journey, the story, it's inspiring. I can't wait to see what you're going to continue to do and pioneer in this space going forward. I know a lot of people are probably going to want to check what you're doing or what Luxus Group specifically is doing, or your projects or investment opportunities. Yeah. What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, appreciate that. So luxusvp.com, and I didn't reference it, but Luxus is the Latin word for luxury. So a lot of people think it might be like a play off the car company, but it's actually a name search that brought up this great thing that fortunately wasn't trademarked. So we're trademarked, most most countries are in the process around the places you want to travel, Western Europe and America and such. So Luxus VP, as in Luxus Vacation Properties, go there. If you are, I'm sure every listener here likes to travel or wants to travel, just go there and pick one of our homes and you'll have a great experience. And you can reach out to me through that. My email is not on there, but if you reach out through the info line and say, hey, I'm curious, I have a home or I have something I want to talk about it, that's a good way to connect. And then I am on Instagram, Stephen Petasky, but I don't post a lot. I always kind of haven't done a lot on the social side, but DMing me that way is if someone's got an opportunity to look at or wants to chat, that's a way that I'm still dabbling a little bit.
Well, we will be sure to link all of that up in show notes, millionaireMindcast.com on Steven's episode. Brother, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thanks, Matt. Great conversation, man. Good luck and keep things rocking. I'll come see your hotel in Vegas when the time comes.
No doubt. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you guys know this show would not be what it is without you, the amazing listener, the support, sharing this out with other people who can gain value from it, taking 60 seconds to leave a review. If you haven't done so already, those things mean the world to us and ultimately help us spread this message out to as many people as we possibly can to help them on their wealth building journey. If you have any particular links or resources that you're trying to track down that were mentioned in this interview, be sure to check out this episode at millionaireMindcast.com, where you can find access to all that information. And of course, if you haven't checked out the Wise Investor Vault yet, be sure to head over to wiseinvestorvault.com to check out all the tools, all the resources, the checklists, the spreadsheets, the trackers, all kinds of amazing things that can help you on your wealth building journey at the wiseinvestorvault.com. If you haven't connected with me on social media yet, I'm consistently putting out more content, stories, value to help you on your wealth building journey. And one of the best and most exciting things for me on a weekly basis is getting to connect with you guys. Getting your DMs, hearing what things impacted you, what you need help with is a big way that we continue to drive the content for this show. So if we're not connected and following each other on Instagram, on social media at Official Matty A, give me a like and a follow. Would love to connect with you there. And of course, don't forget to get on my deals list. If you're an accredited investor, you want to look at more deal flow. You want to see what deals I have access to, what deals I'm raising capital for. This is an exclusive list that I only put out to my accredited investor list, my Millionaire Mindcast family. So text the word deals to 844-447-1555. And with that being said, thank you again so much for supporting the show. Until next week's episode, keep investing in yourself, in your wealth on your march to $1 million and beyond. Cheers.